Good afternoon. I am Arvise Washington, Deputy Director for the Department of Navy's Office of Small Business Programs, led by our distinguished director, Mr. Jimmy Smith. On behalf of the Office of Small Business Programs, we thank you for joining us today. We started this webinar series as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic as a way to continue outreach, but received rave reviews. We decided to keep it going, committing to hosting at least 3 webinars a month. The Department of the Navy recognizes small businesses are the catalyst of innovation, and we use this platform as a way to attract new business partners. You can view previously recorded events on our website under Outreach in the Past Events tab, or visit our YouTube channel. I would like to direct you to our website at www.secnav.navy.mil/small-business, where you can find a wealth of information, including our Department of Navy's Office of Small Business Programs Operations Plan. You can locate your small business professional and find information on how to do business with the DON, including the Command's Long-Range Acquisition Forecast. To stay current on Navy's upcoming events, you can register for our mailing list on the homepage of our website. To stay up to date about upcoming industry days, Command's outreach, and in general, what's happening across the DON, I also encourage you to connect with us on our social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Please join us next week as we feature the O&R Export Controls Small Business Webinar. Today we have a dynamic speaker, and I hope you seize the opportunity to ask questions using the Q&A feature in this platform. So with that, I welcome Mr. Mike McWilliams. He is the Director of Staff, Resource Manager, and Small Business Acquisition Program in the Air Force's Office of Small Business Programs, where he provides daily and strategic headquarters small business operations, policy and strategic planning, to include strategic planning, support, and operations of the United States Space Force Small Business Program. Mr. McWilliams has over 30 years experience in acquisition and program management positions. And with that, please join me in welcoming Mr. Mike McWilliams. Over to you, sir.
Okay, well, thank you, Arvise. Slides will come up here in a minute. First of all, thank you for having me. Let me say initially, I'm pretty much a stand-in today on behalf of our director, Mr. Scott Kaiser. He unfortunately couldn't be here today because he's been stretched thin with another event up at Wright Pat. Actually, this is one of his first travels since the pandemic. So we're starting to get back out there a little bit and taking care of small business matters. And our deputy director, Mr. Adams, is on leave today. So I'm standing in to give you this briefing on how to do business with the government. A lot has changed over this last year, obviously, with not only in addition to the pandemic, but also with respect to the stand-up of the United States Space Force. I'll start right off by saying we briefed the United States Space Force in August 31st, actually. I briefed them up the chain that we will be supporting the United States Space Force Small Business Program. So we are under the Department of the Air Force Small Business. If those of you who are familiar with the Air Force, probably the first time you've seen that listed like that on that first slide, Department of the Air Force, just like the Department of the Navy, because now we are incorporating a lot of the Space Force and will be handling certain elements of the Space Force, small business being one of them. We'll talk about a little bit about that, and I can answer your questions on those as we go forward. Next slide, please. Okay, this is our mission. If you've seen our slides before, we used to have a mission and vision statement, and we have a new director, Mr. Scott Kaiser. Says, you know, we're here for the Air Force mission. This is the latest Air Force mission to fly, fight, and win, air power anytime, anywhere. This was as recently as April when this was the new Air Force mission, so we've updated our slides to include that. So this is the mission of the Air Force Small Business, and small business supporting the mission of the Department of the Air Force. Next slide, please. All right, this is who we are. As you see there, Mr. Scott Kaiser is our director, Mr. Jamie Adams is our deputy director. They both come from the contracting community and acquisitions. Ms. Treva Pettis is our executive assistant. We have Mr. Max Skadalov, who is our small business attorney. He has a vast amount of experience from the Hill. That's where we were able to, fortunately, to snag him from the Hill. Ms. Denise Lavelle is our office manager, and myself, I'm director of staff, supporting Mr. Scott Kaiser and Mr. Adams. Over there, you'll see we have a contracted staff who specialize in, we have a data team. And you'll see some data in here, and I'll go through those quickly. Don't want to bore you with the data, but just how we track how we're doing in small business and report all the way up to the Secretary of the Air Force. We have a couple of sales there. We do have a couple of vacancies right now. I was just talking to Ms. Washington about that earlier. But one thing that's not shown on here is that since we've taken on the Space Force, and we will be executing the Space Force Small Business Program, we were able to acquire one small business position for Space, and I'm working on another one. So we hopefully will have two within the next year, but we do have one, and we're actively trying to fill that position as we speak. Next slide. Okay, what is a small business program? Some of you, if you've heard me do some outreach, it's pretty much, nothing has pretty much changed, but we see small business as a resource resulting in innovation, agility, and affordability. A lot of our small business program specialists, professionals and specialists are contracting or former contracting officers or have a contracting background. I'm a bit unique in that I have a program management background. We try to mix it up with a few of us in here because we can give the program management perspective. I say that to say that I have worked quite a bit with large businesses, and they get the job done. But I was on DoD's largest program, the F-35 program, Joint Strike Fighter, and we had a big interest in small business and what they could do because they help affordability. Like I said, with innovation, a lot of bureaucracy is not there, and a lot of agility with small businesses, and especially affordability. Nothing against large businesses, but we like to have that mix, and small businesses can fill that void. Future competition and choice for our decision makers. We have a bigger pool of competitive sources out there that we can look at in terms of fulfilling requirements. Knowledge informing our requirements and our decisions. When we go out with sources sought, and we'll talk about this probably, and then I will encourage you when it comes to doing business with the government. Respond to those sources sought or source for requests for information. Because as a former program manager, that's where I'm out there trying to find out who's out there and who can perform the work. And we'd like to look at small businesses as well, and I'll foot stomp that. Industrial-based development program. You'll hear a lot with the Air Force program. You'll see our logo. It says Beyond Goals. The little diamond up there, right under it, we generally have the Beyond Goals because we are also looking at the development of the business base and ensuring that we have a pool of large and small businesses out there, and particularly our focus is on small businesses that are qualified to give us the capability that we need. Developing future sources for government requirements, as I just stated, and create strategies and requirements that generate competition. Tools that help us make smart decisions and the strategy for future capabilities. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. All right, just a smattering of what we do, and I say that because we've had this slide in many different variations, and it used to be so busy that we just kind of toned it down a little. But mentor protege, small business innovative research and transfer program, subcontracting, outreach, like we're doing now, one of our big mandates, assisting small businesses. A lot of that in the years that I've been in small businesses, if you're not getting paid or you want additional information on our RFP or RFI, that's what our office is here for, to facilitate that. And I will tell you that just saw a question pop up. assisting small businesses, I will tell you that we do get a lot of inquiries when small businesses find a RFI or RFP out there, and then we are able to put you in contact either with that contracting officer or the small business specialist or professional at that particular base. You will find that a lot of times contracting officers, and I probably don't have to tell you this, they may be a little skittish in talking to you because of competition, but your small business professional is out there to help you with just that. And depending on what they can talk about, they're probably a better contact for you in addition to the CO. We facilitate training for our small business program professionals out in the field, coordinate with the Small Business Administration, PCRs and PTACs offices. We'll talk about a little bit more about the PTACs a little bit later on. The Small Business Act compliance. The Small Business Act is what mandated all the establishment of our office as well as the other services office and other agency offices, so that to ensure that small businesses out there, we maximize your opportunity to get a piece of the government contracts that are and the requirements that are out there. We facilitate and help with market research, and we maintain a public website. I really would like to foot stomp that. Use our website. We think there's a lot of relevant information out there, and a new item that we put out there is brand new. I've actually working with my data team to try to change it, but the website has what we call business opportunity. You've heard of long range estimates or long range forecasts before. To get something out there, I think the Navy and the Army have always been ahead of us on this. We put a list out there of expiring contracts to give you an opportunity, you small businesses, an opportunity to go out there and take a look, see what falls in your wheelhouse, if you will, and then you can contact our office for additional information in terms of who to contact. What we're working on is brand new. It's not perfect. What we're working on is to try to make it sortable for you, because I think there's 100+ pages out there, but we're trying to make it sortable for you. And I'm also in the process of getting it updated from our field unit. So do go out there and take a look at that, as well as other items on our website. Acquisition strategies, foot stomp that one as well, because as a program manager, it was my job to develop the acquisition strategy on how we were going to acquire capability that was required for the warfighter. Part of that was looking at the sources. And then that's why I said with industry days, request for information, sources sought, that gave us the opportunity to see who was out there. I would be standing up there along with my contracting officer, did the same thing in F-35 program, trying to see who was out there and who had the capability or potential capability before I finalized the acquisition strategy. And that's one thing you'll hear me repeat over and over as a program manager. You can help shape the acquisition strategy before the RFP goes out with your input and when you're attending industry days. So please keep that in mind. Next slide, please. Okay, well, I have a small business program. Again, foot stomp. We're mandated by Congress. We do have goals, but we the Air Force like to think of ourselves as beyond goals that the SBA puts out, and you'll see those in a minute here. But Congress mandated that we ensure maximum opportunity for small businesses. And what we have learned and what we live by is that small businesses provide innovation, affordability, and agility, a base of competition, and in some cases can deliver some very unique capabilities. I've seen that I think in my bio, they put 30 years, and I'll tell you, I put 30 years there to keep from giving my age away, but I've been around quite a bit, and I've seen small businesses deliver on that end. Next slide. All right, strategy alignment. You've heard of, if you haven't heard of it, most of you probably hopefully have heard of the National Defense Strategy, as well as the Air Force priorities. When Mr. Kaiser came on board, the first thing he did was pretty much restructured our approach and how we do business. We aligned that's why we changed our mission statement. We aligned ourselves with the National Defense Strategy that you can read there: lethality, strength of the alliance, greater performance, and affordability, and tied that into the Department of the Air Force's objectives, which at the time was stand up the United States Space Force, modernize air and space forces, strong leadership and resilient families, strengthen allies and partners. And then in our office, Mr. Kaiser developed what we call the Small Business Board of Directors. That's 13 of our MAGCOM, our major commands, and our center directors that are out in the field. We have a total of 160 small business professionals out in the field. And we have approximately 13 MAGCOM and center directors that oversee and lead those small business professionals. What we have them doing now over the last year is establishing these lines of effort, or LOEs as we call them. And they're looking at mission-focused small business leadership in terms and using the tools and not rules that we can follow to streamline how we do business, establishing our partners of choice, and establishing the United States Space Force. And like I said, on August 31st, I briefed the space leadership in terms of how we were going to support space. It was approved with the fact that we did secure another funded body for that, and we're working on the second one. So if you don't have the current national defense strategy, until that change, I suggest you read it, understand it. That's where we are aligned to. Look at the Department of the Air Force priorities and understand that that's what we will be looking at in terms of capability and who can support that capability. Next slide, please. Okay, you heard me talk about the small business professionals out in the field. We have about 160 small business professionals overseen by 13 MAGCOM and center directors. This is just a map. You'll see this on our website as well, that identifies pretty much where we're located across the United States. And in there, we have a feature called Locate a Small Business Professional. And you can scroll over it. We're in the process of updating that too, making sure that the address is still right, especially since this last year. A lot of things have changed. But you can scroll over it and it'll give you the contact information for the Small Business Program Office. Not necessarily the name, because we do get inundated with a lot of emails, but we made sure that they give a contact that someone will be checking if you need to get a hold of them. And I always say, if you can't, or if you feel that, give them a few days. We're a small organization implementing the Air Force and now the space program. If you don't feel that you've been responded back to in a reasonable amount of time, just call our office and we'll try to help facilitate that for you. Next chart. All right, there you go. In terms of where we're at, again, approximately that number 158 has actually grown, particularly with Space Force and a few others, but that's where we're at. We have 10 full-time, 11 now, full-time small business professionals in our office to include space, and I'm working, like I say, on that second one, so hopefully we get that up to 12. Air Combat Command, Area Education and Training Command, Air Force District of Washington, Air Force Global Strike, Air Force Material Command, where I spend a lot of my time as a program manager, AFOTech Testing Squadron, Air Force Reserve down in Warner Robin, where I spent some time, Air Force Special Operations, Air Force, that Air Force Space Command is now the United States Space Force, Air Mobility Command, Pacific, and the Air Force Academy. So that's where they're located, but we've got them across the United States. And in some cases, they're even more than we show here on the slide in terms of staff support with their contractor support. Next slide. All right, generally, over this last year, we get asked a lot, it's like, hey, how has this unfortunate situation of the pandemic, COVID-19, impacted your office? So I wanted to let you know, as small business out there, we're still open and trying to operate as fully as we can, even under this pandemic. We have adapted quite well, I might add, to teleworking. As you'll see here, we were part of the joint task force that's down there a little bit in the slide, but let me go through these. 1.774 billion in Air Force COVID-19 response contract span. Small business received about 737 million, plus about 42% of that spend. We adopted teleworking and virtual platforms like we're doing now. We are reaching out. We are beginning to start some travel, but we found, and I think as everybody's finding, that teleworking does work and can work quite well. Outreach during the pandemic, we've reached about 17,000 plus audiences and we've already participated in about 90 plus virtual events. And why so many? And we saw that number. It's a little bit easier doing it virtually instead of traveling. I think right when we had the shutdown, I had just come out of Vegas from an event. But sometimes it's a lot easier, and we reach a lot more folks through this medium that we're using now. So I think we're going to have a mix there, or a blend of this as we move forward. We'll see what happens. Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, response to industrial policy with bi-monthly meetings for DoD and industry members. We brief our Undersecretary of the Air Force, Deputy Secretary of the Air Force, I'm sorry, for Assistant Secretary of the Air Force bi-monthly, and we just briefed it this past week on the status of small business. And then when we get to the next slide here in a minute, and I'll show you one thing that's really coming up. We are part of the Joint Task Force on COVID-19. The lead of that is General Holt, contracting. My boss, Mr. Kaiser, used to be his deputy, but now as he is the Director of Small Business, he's an integral part of the Joint Task Force. And we brief that every Wednesday on what contracts that we have awarded and the total spend for small business. And also, if you go to our website, if you haven't been out there already, you'll see where we established a dedicated website for COVID-19 resources. What we tried to do with that, just click on that facing page, and it'll take you to all the relevant links that are dealing with COVID in terms of PPP and just any type of information that you want. We tried to link as well as we could with the other agency sites, other sister services sites. So a host of information. I have my team look at that once a week to make sure the links work. But if you've been out there, or if you do get out there and find they do not work, or the information is outdated, we ask you, there's a link on there where you can email us directly, and we will get the message, and we'll take care of any questions you have in addition to fixing anything out there. Next slide. Okay, this is a slide I was talking about. It's an example of and I didn't put the names in here for obvious reasons, but it's an example of how we brief this with the Joint Task Force and show where we're at in terms of small businesses supporting the COVID, the pandemic effort, and providing COVID-19 either equipment or anything related medically or anything related to the pandemic. And as you can see there, just a couple examples. The Texas and Delaware joint venture created a wearable bracelet with alert tracing system. And then we had a San Francisco company give a new situational capabilities to the commanders to fight against COVID-19. So this is an example of how we try to showcase every week how small businesses are contributing to the fight, and they've been contributing to the fight, but how they're contributing to the fight. It's helped us get an even better picture of how the small businesses are out there and what they're providing. And I don't have to tell you, small businesses, this year alone has really raised the profile of small businesses, both commercially and with the government. So we are tracking this. Next slide, please. Category management. In my previous, and I'll spend just brief time here. In my previous outreach events, this was always a bad word, but I've gone through the training. I have another counterpart in the office who's gone through the training for category management. There's some important changes there, whereas we small business professionals are part of this process, and we are actually on the integral part of the process, just like we used to go out and do peer reviews on programs and make sure that small businesses are involved. We do the same thing here with category management. So we're an integral part of it. We do, I've taken training, but we do have a specialist in our organization. And the overall intent here was for the government to buy smarter, eliminate redundancy, and leverage spending, okay? So there was very, very concerned about small businesses being left out, but we've been trying to turn that around. I think, again, with our involvement in it, we pretty much got a handle on it, and we are in there front and center with category management. Next slide. Okay, how to do business with the Air Force. and I think it's in general, it's how to do business with the government, but with the Air Force, identify your product or services. You know, I have a lot of companies that send me capability statements, or they'll send them through our website. You can do that as well. Once we take a look at it, we'll either send it out to our 160 plus small business professionals and say, hey, we've got a small business here that's interested in doing business with us. And that in itself may generate some interest. Just depends on your status, whether you're 8A, woman-owned small business, where there's the potential for sole source, or whether there's, whether they're looking for some more competitive sources. So that helps. So do not hesitate to contact a small business professional and then identify what your capabilities are. Register your business, ensure your business is registered, because the contracting officer will go with DUNS at first, but we'll go into SAM and see what small businesses are out there. We, the Small Business Office, like to try to ensure that our contracting officers are out there looking for small businesses. I get a lot of feedback sometimes that, oh, well, they're not going to look at us anyway because they already know who they want. And I will tell you, that's not true. I'm not just saying that because that's the company line, but I've been around long enough to know that is definitely not true. And I myself have been on a number of source selections where we've surprised a few companies who thought they may have had it locked up. So I wouldn't take it for granted that, well, they know who they want. Make sure you're registered, make sure you're in SAM, and they will be looking at you if needed. Some other areas, prepare to market your business to the Air Force. Review. Now we have up there long range acquisition forecast. On our website, it's called Business Opportunities, in big letters out there. You can't miss it, but it's the same thing. It's business opportunities that we put out there. And like I said, I'm in the process of actually updating that. And we've gotten some feedback to make it more sortable because there's so many expiring contracts out there. I failed to mention earlier, on that same area with the business opportunities, there's a couple of other links that you can link to and go to, I think, a civil engineering, and see what opportunities that are there as well. And I think there's one more link out there, but do check it out. Welcome your ideas or any comments on the site. Any way we can make it better for you, that would help as well. And to give you an example, the business opportunity list we have out there now, I've talked to my team about making it sortable, but I was talking to one company, and one thing that he mentioned to me, he says, we specialize in expiring contracts, but we can never get a hold of who the contact person is. So that's something that I'm working on our list. I probably won't be putting names out there, but I'll be ensuring that we can at least know who the contact person is, or send you to our small business professional who can direct you to that contracting officer on either expiring contracts or even upcoming opportunities. Generally, they're in the RFP, but I think it's expiring contracts where they have a problem. Review our website, a ton of information out there that I've mentioned. Contact a small business professional, use them. That's what they're there for. That's why they're out there in the field, and that's why we have so many of them there. They're out there to advocate for you and for advocating for small business capabilities. Understand how we do business. No, that I've run into, no, I can't promise you the next contract if you lose the first one. I get these questions and quite a few others, but understand how government contracting works. Understand who our officers are, and I think it's on the next slide. And then explore subcontracting opportunities, because that could be the stepping stone, as I'm sure many of you know, to becoming the prime. And we work with subcontracting opportunities also, but we want to see you become the prime, so we expand the industrial base and have a little bit more innovation, agility, and affordability, as we talked about earlier. Next slide, please. All right, know your target market. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Yeah, so those emblems, of course, were just the different commands that we have in the Air Force. So identify your target market, know what we do, educate yourself on what we do. I think we have information out there on the website, or you can go to any of their websites. Most of these, no, not most, all of these commands have websites and tell you what their missions are. Look at their mission statement. And then in some cases, on the actual websites at the base, they will have acquisition opportunities. So you can see there too what they're looking for. But working in conjunction with our small business professional at each one of these commands and these different installations, they too can also let you know what opportunities that are out there and understanding the market for these different commands. Our office in the Pentagon, we are policy and oversight and implementing the overall Air Force and now space programs, small business programs. We have some knowledge, of course, in terms of implementing these programs and what some of these commands are doing, but no one can tell you better than the small business professional that is sitting at that command, and we have one at each command. Make them work for you, that's what they're there for. Next slide. Okay, just some more information. Set your beta SAM alerts. You've probably seen this many times if you've heard from the Air Force briefings or probably some of the other service briefings, but start with the earliest notices. And it's very important to start early with the RFIs, industry events, and even the RFPs. Like I tell you, as a program manager, you can help me as a program manager looking for capability and looking for the sources of those capabilities. Help me establish my acquisition strategy. You never know. I mean, knowing who's out there, I could set aside a certain portion for small business. I may want to just look at small businesses. It depends, but you got to make yourself known. You got to respond to those RFIs, those sources sought, and attend those industry events. And I don't want to insult your intelligence. You probably already know this. I know some companies have told me that when they go to these events, they don't want to speak out loud, but because I guess afraid, of competition. But you can always get in most cases, get an audience with the program manager and relevant contracting officer during those early stages, and identify what you can do. And again, that can help feed into the overall acquisition strategy once it's complete. You never know. Know your capabilities, prime and or subcontract opportunities. Know it well and have your elevator speech ready to give. Be responsive, as I talked about earlier, to RFIs, industry events, sources sought, and use our website to learn the rules of the road. Understand who we are, understand how we do business. Next chart. All right, just a couple of available resources out there. SBA, of course, the PTACs, Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. They are very big out there. And if you haven't attended, we attend the AFA, the Air Force Association major event at the Gaylord. We have a booth out there. We've had it out there for the last 4 or 5 years. Last year was virtual. We had a virtual booth. This year I have a physical booth. We'll see how it goes, but I think we're going to be doing it physical again. And small business has garnered so much attention that AFA has established a small business pavilion. We generally have the secretary or try to get the secretary to walk through to acknowledge and recognize the small businesses there. And they're also out there as well, even out on the floors. But I say that to say at those events, I have brought in the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers around from the Virginia, Washington, and Maryland area to sit with us, so to show the collaboration that we have there with the PTACs. Started the PTACs, they're very good local and state resource, and we work with them. And like I say, sometimes we have them with our booth, stand there with us for a collaborative effort in helping you to work your way to government contracts. We have SCORE, and then we have the small business development centers that are there. Most of those are local events, are local resources that you can look up and take advantage of. I really foot stomp the PTACs, the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, and the SBA website. A lot of good information. Okay, next slide, please. All right, just a few slides, just some data slides, give you an idea of where we're at. It shows you our trend from 2018 up to 2021. Now we're still very early in 2021, but you can see the trend there with the small businesses and the total eligible spend on the top portion there, and where we usually wind up, and then where we're headed. So that gives you an idea. This year, our small business goal is about 19.85%. We're already at 17.27%. So it looks like we're going to hopefully be able to reach our goals, and hopefully more so this coming year. Down below there shows you the different categories, and again gives you some trend data on where we were and where we're headed in 2021. Again, it's still early, but just a snapshot in time. This is the type of information that we brief up our chain to our Undersecretary, our Assistant Secretary of the Air Force. Next chart. All right, here are these small business goals, the categories. Again, the SBA statutory goals. And then to the right there, you see the DoD goals that are set by the Department of the Air Force for FY21. Again, this is congressionally mandated, but again, we like to think of ourselves as beyond goal. We're not just trying to fill a quota for prime or subcontract. You see subcontract goals. There are no statutory goals, but we do set some type of goal for ourselves. Again, to push the fact that we look at subcontracting as well, because it leads to you become, or can lead to you becoming the prime for certain requirements. All right. Next chart. Another trend chart, just data again, focus on the top chart. 2021 gives you an idea of the total awards so far, and the small business awards. They're in the first couple of columns. And then we break it down into different categories. And again, just another way of slicing and dicing the trend data. Next chart. All right, as with the Navy, as with the Army and other federal agencies, this is how you can reach us. First and foremost, our website. You can just Google Air Force Small Biz, and we should pop right up. But we also have Facebook, we have LinkedIn, and then Twitter account as well. You can email us right there. You'll see that on our website. That's where you can reach in, and then any questions or inquiries you have, we'll try to respond back to you there best we can. So we recently changed that and updated that within the last month here. And then the Silver Sitter site as well. We do, one of our members, our small business professional, is specialized in small business innovative research and small business transfer, science and technology transfer. And he is actually with the boss up at Right Pat there, SBIR event there as well. So next slide. Okay, questions. If you have any questions, hope that wasn't too fast. These charts, if you already had a set of charts, I updated these charts right before we went on the air, and these charts are available for public release, and I think they will have these posted. So this is a more updated set of charts with numbers.
Well, thank you, Mike. And yes, we will be providing the charts via our website on our where you went to register for this event. So the charts will be made available. So let's get started with questions. The first question is about the Mentor-Protege contracts. Can you highlight the differences between maybe the Air Force, Army, and Navy and their Mentor-Protege agreements? How does one of our attendees participate in your Mentor-Protege program?
Well, let me start with the last piece there. I'm not the expert on Mentor-Protege. Our point of contact is Mr. David Sikora. He is with, like I said, with the boss today up at Right Pat. He is our Mentor-Protege and our SBIR specialist. We hired him actually from Right Pat because of his specialization. So he is who I would put you in contact with, and particularly to highlight the differences between the different agencies. Quite honestly, I don't know if there's that much difference. I know he's given me a list of the broad agency announcement that we will put out on the website. As a matter of fact, you can go out on the website. I know we've got a SBIR Center page out there, and I know we have some mentor protege information as well. But there's that email I told you about on our website that comes into our workflow. Email me, and then I can email you the contact information for our SBIR, our mentor protege PLC. I don't want to give it over here because, I'd rather let him know first so he doesn't get inundated.
All right, thank you. The next question, can you talk a little bit about some of the successes of your mentor protege agreements and what additional opportunities Air Force provides for them while in the program after graduation?
Okay, again, I'm gonna have to apologize. I'm gonna have to get Dave to answer that. As a matter of fact, here's what I'll do. For mentor protege specific, I will get a hold of Dave Sikora, and I'm writing these questions down as we speak. I will see if we have either a briefing, a mentor protege briefing. I know he does have one that he gives when he's doing outreach, particularly in that arena, and see if we can send it to you to post as well.
Okay, great. So when we're looking at COVID, I know that we used to do a lot of in-person outreach. How has COVID impacted outreach with small businesses and the Air Force? Has it provided more opportunities? And how can our attendees be a part of some of these opportunities?
Well, I think that was the one slide I talked about where I took a little bit of departure there, and I said we get asked that question all the time. How has the pandemic affected you? And if I remember the chart, we reached about 17,000. We had artists about 17,000 that we've reached during these virtual events. That number even surprised me. So to answer the question, we've reached a lot more small businesses because everyone is looking at virtual. We can reach a lot more. Right before the lockdown, I had mentioned that I had just came from Vegas. I was out at Vegas at Las Vegas at an event. And then I think right before that, I can't remember. I think I was up in Ohio. But on these type of events, and I think you got about 100 plus participants now, we reach a lot more rather than me flying somewhere and we may only have an audience of 30 or 50. So I do think that we've reached a lot more folks through the virtual event. I know we're gonna be blending this with some travel as the travel picks up some, but I do think we're probably gonna see a lot more virtual events because we do tend to, it's looking like we reach a lot more. We track those numbers. That's why we had that 17,000 plus audience. And it is looking like we do track more. I think the question was, how can they participate, attend these events? I think we just recently had a virtual industry day that some companies attended. Attend anything that's virtual, attend them, and they're going to be just like the in-person events. And I do think you're going to see, if not more of them, a blending of them.
And they can find more information about those events via your social media.
Yes,
You'll be sharing them there.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good point. On the website, Footstomp the website, we try to list industry days as we find out about them from our field units. We try to list, one thing we didn't talk about, but we try to list the pitch days, the Air Force pitch days. We try to list those once we get the information. And if you're not seeing them, again, use that email and hit us up once or twice and say, hey, where are these at? But I try to keep our team updating that information as much as possible.
Good. So as we pivot over to your requirements community, I believe similar to the Department of the Navy, you have designated your deputy program managers as small business advocates. I remember that memo was signed out, I believe, under your last director. Yeah. How is it that a company can connect with those deputy program managers to present a capabilities brief?
See, I love these type of questions because it gives me the opportunity to foot stomp our small business professionals. The best, some folks get lucky. I don't know how. Some folks get lucky and they'll make a direct connection. But your small business professional at a specific base where the program is, i.e. right at where most of the programs are, can either help you get in that door or help facilitate the connection. but use that small business professional. That, you know, I was a program manager. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes we just don't have the time unless we're doing industry days and then we're steady trying to manage our program. But if I get a small business professional that comes to me and they have a source, that is big. So I would say use the small business professionals, use the contracting officer as well, and tell them what you want to do. But also, but more importantly, use that small business professional. When you go in, if you get that audience, we have had some who have gotten an audience. They come to our office to see if their briefings are right on par. And one that stood out for me, I remember someone had, I would just say it was a thesis, okay? It was like 30-something slides, and we said, no. You're gonna go in and talk to the program office, get to the point, go in with about 10 slides, and tell them what you can do for them. Remember, we as program managers have stamped to our head cost, schedule, and performance. What can you do for me within cost, schedule, and how's it gonna perform?
Mm-hmm. Great. So when we talk a little bit about the goals, and you had your historical slide there, can you just talk a little bit more, reiterate, has the Air Force met all of their small business goals, both historically, and are you on track for fiscal year 21, especially with the pandemic that we're coming out of? And if you haven't, which socioeconomic goals were not met or that you might be looking for industry in specific areas?
Okay, interesting question. We have been meeting our goals. We have been exceeding our goals right before the pandemic. I want to say, I think on the chart there we showed 1 year we were either close or just under the woman-owned small businesses. Okay. So that's one category that I mentioned. Hub Zone tends to, or used to be an area where we had some issues. I even went as far as, I don't remember if you went there too, Parvez, when we went to Puerto Rico on that.
Emily did, yes. Navy did participate in that.
Yeah, because of the 85% Hub Zone there. So we're trying to help there as well as here in the States or even part joint ventures. But I hate to single out one specific business because we're looking at all categories. I do know we've had some areas, but women-owned small business is one that stands out. But we have exceeded our goals. I think in one of those charts I showed you, it's early in the year. When you look at fiscal year, maybe about halfway there. Look at fiscal year 21. We seem like we're on track to meet our goals. And again, the pandemic, because we have been tracking them closely with the Joint Task Force and highlighting those companies like I've shown you, we are seeing more small business participate. And General Holt, I can tell you, every time we brief this slide, you know, he is a contracting officer that sits there and says, it is so important that we look after these small businesses and make sure that we're highlighting them. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes. So you did a lot of foot stomping on the PTAX, and we do that as well. Where is it that our community can connect with you at any, do you have any upcoming local PTAC events that you might be collaborating with them on?
You know, the biggest one that I know of is AFA, where we've had, like I say, this year, I think they're going to go physical. And we had a physical booth, and we've invited the PTACs to come sit with us and be there to give out their information as well as ours. That's in September, I believe, the Air Force Association event at the Gaylord. And again, right now we're on track to be in the physical. I know we have a booth there. It's going to be in the Small Business Pavilion. I do need to invite the PTACs to see if they want to join us this year. However, if you want to get a hold of one, you just contact us through the website and we can get you that information as well.
Great. So we do have a company here that is a hub zone providing advanced artificial intelligence and software and systems engineering. How can they go about connecting with the right small business professional in the Air Force to present a capabilities brief?
Okay, I tell you, email me at the, go to our website, email the workflow link we have out there. in the subject line, put this event, so I'll recognize it. And, put in the subject line, this event and request for information or something to that effect, just so I'll get it. And then I can get you to where you want to go. But, that's a good question. You said, connect you with the right small business professional. Again, remember the slides I had about knowing who does what out there in terms of our match comms. If you don't know, that's okay. We can help educate you. But if you know who you want to connect with or what base or where you may have gotten wind of some capabilities that you think you might fit, let me know and I can certainly get you that connection. And if you don't, then when you email me, we can talk about it.
Okay. So you're talking about previously the Space Force. Will you have opportunities for small businesses to discuss more about what they can do in support of the Space Force?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, what I will probably do is put you in contact with our 2 space directors. We have one in Colorado, and they when I briefed the Space Force when they first stood up in terms of how we're going to support them, they were part of my team as well as the small business attorney. I have one in Colorado and one director at SMC. Those are the people to talk to. As a matter of fact, some of those items that we showcase, I'm daily, weekly, I would say, I am getting small business good news stories, particularly from the LA office. So those are 2 sources there that I can probably connect you with and tell you how to, get in that space. No pun intended, but get in that space with respect to capabilities or potential capabilities there.
Okay.
Did that answer the question?
Yes. The next one, I'm not certain what the question is, but I'll take a stab. And Mr. Yuan, if you want to resubmit your question a little bit more clear if I didn't get it across properly. So this question is about 8A set-asides and how do you go about determining those contracts that will be set aside for 8A programs? And then I believe this company is interested in maybe connecting with them after they graduate. Is there a list or something that you maintain of all of the 8A contracts that the Air Force awards?
I saw that question pop up on the screen. I think what they're asking is there a list in the expiring contract list that we have out there. I do think it identifies what type of contract it was. Whether it was a small business set aside, whether it was an 8A. Several years ago, before we did put this business opportunities list out there, I'd go out to the small business directors when I come to an event like this. I would ask them, okay, give me a list of your opportunities. They would give me the list. They would tell me if they were 8A set aside or if they were looking for women-owned small business. I just recently had a competition where I was looking for women-owned small businesses, whether they're veteran or what have you. So that's how you will find out, depending on the RFI, the request for information, or the source of SAR. And that's why I say it's important to go to those events, because if I'm a program manager standing out there and I see that there's an 8A out there, or I see that there is a woman-owned small business out there, I might, depending on the requirement, no guarantees at all, I might set it aside. I might even look at sole sourcing it, okay? So you have to be engaged, as one of the slides mentioned. You need to be engaged, and you need to go to those sources of the industry events, and need to contact those small business professionals. I'm foot stomping those again because they're out there for a reason. They can give you that information on how best to do that. Now, in terms of becoming an 8A, that's SBA. I have to direct you to the SBA for becoming SBA. Once you graduate, I have a lot of companies who contact me, and they're either partnering with the 8A or partnering with someone to kind of continue on, but that's between the companies. I had another thought there. Well, like I said, anyways, contact a small business professional, or I can put you in contact with them for those 8A set aside. And watch our list. If they identify something's coming up, it will identify whether it's a set aside or 8A or 1 on, etc.
So this is a good one. What is the relationship between your office, the Air Force Office of Small Business Programs, and AFWorks?
That's where the boss is this week. Oh yeah, interesting relationship. AFWorks is new, and AFWorks looks for those innovative ideas. And to make the long story short, we try to help facilitate small businesses participating with AFWorks. In other words, I point a lot of small business to AFWorks. I'll get a capability statement in email or through the website, and if it's a very unique idea and there's no home for it, or the way I like to couch it is someone out there may have an idea that we didn't even know, or have a requirement that we didn't know we need. Then we point them to AFWorks. Okay, so we help facilitate the small businesses there. My boss, like I said, he's up there right back now. I know he's dealing with AFWorks. I know they have weekly telecons. I participate in some of them, and how we can help facilitate small businesses participation in the AFWorks space out there. We first met AFWorks at the Small Business Training event, or these, in Louisiana. And we actually sat down several years ago, and that's where we started that relationship. But again, we help facilitate small businesses participate in that.
Okay. Do you have any upcoming virtual events that you might want to highlight for our audience if they want to connect with you? Anything you know about off the top of your head?
Yeah, no, not off the top of my head. That's a good question. Let me make a note here. And if it's either something I can send you to post. Okay?
Yes, exactly. We will share it on our social.
Okay.
So we have a company that maybe has had a capabilities presentation that's been vetted, and they've been reaching out to the small business professionals at the different bases and haven't received a response. Do you have any recommendations for them? What is it? What next steps they can take to get that meeting?
As I said earlier, contact us. Send me an email, put in the subject line, where this is from, so I'll know the meeting, and tell me exactly what you just told me. You reached out to this office, you reached out to that office, and can't get a hold of them. Now, I'll tell you, during the pandemic, part of the problem, and that's why we're updating, part of the problem is a lot of us are not in office, that we think the contact information may be outdated. And a lot of them are not in office and still probably teleworking, but I can certainly help you with that.
Okay. Air Force is a strong user of the GSA Oasis vehicle. Yep. Are there other vehicles that Air Force is a big proponent of using?
GSA, man, it's funny to mention that. And that's one I didn't foot stomp, but I usually foot stomp GSA and Oasis. I've used Oasis here recently myself. Those are the two. Not off the top of my head, I can't think. I know there's a couple of others. I'm scared to say because I might mispronounce, but I'll take a note and give you some information I'll reach the post. Okay.
Okay. Perfect.
But GSA and Oasis at the top of the list. All right.
All right. So this next question is about OTAs. Air Force, do you have any information on what other transaction authorities, vehicles that the Air Force might be using? And do they utilize that for proven TRL-8 technologies of interest to DoD stakeholders?
Oh, that's very specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very specific. I'll have to get some detailed information on that one. I know we do. We had our attorney work in the OTAs, Max working those quite a bit, a little bit over a year ago. So I'd have to go back, particularly on that specific about the TRL, and get a question. I'm taking notes, but if you can remind me of these questions.
We surely will. We're capturing all of the questions, and we'll make sure that we send them over. And with that, we are almost out of time, Mike. So we do still have a couple of questions in the queue. What we will do is take those down, send them your way, and we will share with our community those responses. So we want to thank you all for joining us today. If you have any recommendations for a topic you would like to see presented, You can please forward us an email at osbp.pao@navy.mil. And until next time, stay safe and stay healthy. Thanks again, Mike, to you and the Air Force team for joining us today.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully it was helpful, and do reach out to me, okay?
Will do. Have a good one, everyone.